Every UFC fighter has a fan base, and each fan base makes it really difficult to root for a fighter. Today we're going to be talking about each UFC fighter and talk about what is wrong with their fan base. This isn't a dig at the fighters themselves, but it's mainly to just talk about what is wrong with their fan base. So let's get into it. Starting off this list is Conor McGregor fans. Now Conor McGregor fans tend to be stuck in 2016. They are stuck in the past and living in nostalgia, and they talk about each year about Conor making a comeback. He's going to shock the world. He's going to face, for example, Michael Chandler and beat him. But they ignore the fact that inactivity and injuries are a huge part of reality. They build up and affect fighters in the long term. And as Conor has gotten older, he hasn't fought in a while. That devastating injury he had last time, those sorts of things catch up to you, and you have to face the facts that nostalgia alone can't save a fighter that was once great in the past. Yes, Conor was amazing back in 2016 and in his prime in featherweight and in the lightweight division. He hasn't been the same for in the last decade. So I'd say that with Conor McGregor fans, they tend to live in nostalgia and put feelings into their decision making. They ignore the fact that Conor can't really stand with the top fighters in the lightweight division anymore. He wouldn't be able to stand a chance with Ilia Topuria in his current state of 2025. He wouldn't be able to stand a chance with Arman Tsarukyan. He'd probably get dominated on the ground with Paddy Pimblett, although he's a way better striker than Paddy Pimblett on the ground. It's a total different story. Conor isn't the same guy he once was, and people put a lot of positive memories that they had of Conor back in the last decade into why they think he's still a great fighter. The second fighter on this list is the Jon Jones fan base, and the issue with the Jon Jones fan base is that they tend to have selective memory. What I mean by this is that they tend to call him the GOAT of the sport, the greatest that's ever done it, but they tend to miss crucial factors of Jon Jones. The fact that he's missed fights, had PED issues, a lot of inactivity, ducking certain fighters, and cheating a lot of the times, with the eye pokes and etc. Those types of things, you can't necessarily qualify you as a GOAT of the sport, as we have it on footage. You've cheated so many times and gotten away with it, and yet they still call him the GOAT of the sport due to the fact that he's beaten pretty much everyone that he's faced, even though he's done some questionable things to get these victories. He's also had some questionable behavior, such as ducking Asman over the last year, and outside of the ring with some dodgy behavior. The Jon Jones fan base tends to only take the positive aspects of Jon Jones for their own bias and argument, whilst completely ignoring the critique and negative sides of Jon Jones. The next fighter is Khamzat Chimaev, and the issue with Khamzat Chimaev fans is that they tend to always make excuses for him whenever Khamzat is out of fights or has injuries or won't fight for a quite long while. They tend to always make excuses for him, saying he can't do it because of this, because of that, and we're not allowed to critique Khamzat Chimaev, or otherwise his fan base will just jump at you in the comment section. They tend to always overhype his potential rather than looking at his actual accomplishments. The next fighter is Sean O'Malley, and the issue with the Sean O'Malley fans is that they kind of are ignorant to the fact that Sean gets really good treatment from Dana White and the UFC, and they kind of ignore the fact that he gets into certain positions that he doesn't deserve. An example is the fight with Piotr Jan that he didn't really deserve at all to even get, as he was a lower ranked opponent at the time, and the fact that he got away with that robbery. They also are kind of young and kind of cringe, they're always in Instagram comments and TikTok comments, being weirdos, just soaking in the hype of Sean O'Malley with the marketing that isn't natural and organic. Like, for example, Conor McGregor had that aura about him, that charisma, whereas Sean O'Malley has the ability of a duck on the microphone that just, he can't sell a fight. He isn't really entertaining on the microphone, although he is talented as a fighter, a great striker. His speaking skills and his charisma on the microphone and getting an audience isn't really there, and the only audience that he really brings are little kids and people who don't really know much about fighting, are absolute casuals. Sean O'Malley has a fan base of casuals who only like striking in the sport and just watch him for that sake, really. The next fighter on this list is Paddy Pimblett, and the issue with the Paddy Pimblett fans is that it's kind of similar to Sean O'Malley but flipped around. With Sean O'Malley, the issue was that his fan base are kind of casuals and just obsessed with the style of striking, whereas Paddy Pimblett, although he's decent at jiu-jitsu, his other fighting abilities aren't as talented. He's pretty horrible on the feet. He's not got the best wrestling. He just has really decent jiu-jitsu, and he's not the best all-round fighter, but his ability to speak on the microphone and get fans' attention from all around the world is impressive. And that's the difference with Sean O'Malley and Paddy Pimblett, and that's the issue with Paddy Pimblett fans. They kind of take the hype and charisma and persona of Paddy Pimblett as legitimate factors of why he's a great fighter and why they should be a fan of him and support him, without actually looking at his actual accomplishments and being an actual fighter. They take the marketing aspect of Paddy Pimblett but put aside the fighting aspect of Paddy Pimblett. The next fighter is Alex Pereira, and the issue with the Alex Pereira fans is that they ignore the fact that Alex Pereira has had a decent, easy run to get to the title. What I mean by this is that a lot of the fighters that Alex Pereira has faced have been predominantly strikers. You look at, Jan Blachowicz, Israel Adesanya, Yuri Prochazka, Jamal Hill, Magomed Ankalaev, and Khalil Roundtree. A lot of these fighters are predominantly strikers. A lot of people will say Magomed, he has that Dagestani background, he's a grappler, whereas you're wrong, because Magomed is predominantly a striker. So you can see from his whole career in the UFC, Alex has had the best opportunities given to him to become a champion. He comes from that kickboxing background, from being in Glory, and he has that edge when it comes to striking, but he hasn't really faced someone that has great wrestling and the ability to get him down and hold him down and impose their will on him. There's not been a great wrestler in those divisions higher up. So I'd say the issue with Alex Pereira fans is that they ignore the fact that there hasn't been the right style to counter Pereira, and that he's had an easier run to get to the title than other fighters have. The next fighters that I have grouped together are Khabib Nurmagomedov and Islam Makhachev. Both have the same fan base, which are the Dagestani fan base, which are known for being insufferable. The critique of this fan base is that they don't allow room for any criticism. When you talk about the fact that Khabib's opponents that he's faced throughout his career, yes, that record looks impressive of 29-0. He only fought a couple of decent opponents, which they will never allow you to critique about. These guys are constantly in the comment sections, of every Instagram or TikTok post, just constantly glazing these Dagestani fighters and just praising them. But the second you critique them or point out something which is true about both these fighters, they will constantly hammer you with hate comments or just go after you personally, which is just strange. The next fighter is Ilia Topuria, and the critique about Ilia Topuria fans is that they are kind of parasocial and weird. What I mean by this is that whenever Ilia is posted on social media, you can always guarantee that in the comment section they say something along the lines of, "We did this, we won this, look at our family, look at this." It's just really weird. I know it's kind of a joke, but some of them aren't joking. Some of them are genuinely acting this way. Some of the videos that they post, the edits of Ilia, it's borderline insane. They just have some of the weirdest fantasies about him, which just can't be defended. So yeah, that's something that's wrong with Ilia Topuria fans. The final fighter is Charles Oliveira, and the issue with the fan base of Charles Oliveira is that they are very emotional. They can't be subjective and critique Charles Oliveira for his actual fighting ability and always pick him because of their love for Charles Oliveira, which I can understand. He's a great stand-up guy. He's entertaining, he's always willing to fight, go guns blazing or die trying. Charles is great for that. But when you look at his losses, you can see that each time he was just completely outmatched and the right fighter won, because he's just always better than Charles Oliveira when they fight. But anyways, that's been this video. Don't take this seriously. This is just me critiquing the fan base and not the fighter. I like all these fighters. A lot of these are my favorite fighters, so don't come at me. I'm just making a joke and laughing at the fan base. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, subscribe, let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.